Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Maria Carrasco. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I'd start there. We lay some important groundwork, but if you're ready to jump in, let's go. In this part, we talk about the ways that we're all creative. Yes, even you. How to find that again in the middle of motherhood, and why your creativity actually matters more than you think. I've heard, and I used to say this for myself, and then I've heard a lot of other people who will think of themselves as just not being creative. And so I'm wondering if you have ever seen someone walk into the studio who thought that they were not creative, but then they left transformed.
They walked in thinking they weren't creative?
Yeah, so they might not have, or maybe it's had been a while and they're like, I guess I'll just try this. I don't know.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking of, it was before COVID, and I was teaching a kids class. And it was on the wheel, and there was just this little boy. So the kids were probably around 9 or 10. And there was this little boy that came in, and he said, I've never done pottery. I'm not very creative. I don't like to get dirty, so my mom signed me up for this. And I know. And I just
hilarious.
laughed because he came in and he was wearing like this, and I think he really liked clothes and stuff because he would come in.
Oh, okay.
With this nice sweater on and these nice jeans and these nice tennis shoes. And I'm like, buddy, okay, well, you're going to get dirty, but you're going to have fun. And so at first he started doing it, and he was like, kind of like having a hard time getting his hands dirty. And I just encouraged him, and I would go by and I would make a big deal. Like he would make this little lopsided bowl or whatever. And I'm like, wow, look at you go. Right. And I was just cheering him on.
Oh.
His thoughts transformed as far as I'm not creative and I don't want to get dirty because it was a 6-week class. So towards the last few weeks, he was just anxious to get on that wheel. And then when his mom would come and pick him up, he would be all excited, like, look what I made. Look what I made. So part of it was him getting the encouragement and the cheering on to be encouraged. You can do it. You have the ability to do it. Was always hoping that he would come back. And then there's women, young women, older women that come in. The thing with pottery, though, you have to really just stay in the game because it'll take you a couple years before you are really comfortable and able to. It'll boss you around at first before you're able to take authority over or boss it around.
Yeah. And really, I feel like how much time it probably takes to be able to come in with a design and you're like, this is what I want it to be. And I'm confident I can make it happen because I feel like that'd be very hard to get to that place. Yeah.
But teachers are there too, like if you go to a teacher, like, I want to make this. And then, okay, let's do it. And they can guide you through the process as well.
Well, you have been my inspiration for pottery. And like I had mentioned, the most recent time, which has been, unfortunately, it's sat so long. I feel like, I guess it's 6 months ago. But in December, I did that, me and my sisters, for my one of my sister's birthday. And it was so therapeutic. Like I mean, just so relaxing, even in the midst of being like, okay, I tried and I'm going to have to scrap it and try again. Like the frustration, I guess, of trying to get it centered and work it and whatever. But I don't even have the words to describe what it did, but I was just like, I want more of this. And I remember, it was really close to Christmas. And so we were like, okay, my middle sister and I, who's also married, we're like, let's make something for our husbands. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna make this mug without a handle because I had no idea how to like make the handle at this point. And so I was like, great, this is a mug size. Okay, this is gonna be, he'll love it. And then I go to pick it up and it shrunk so much. It was like an espresso shot.
Yeah,
So I was like, well,
that's
here
right.
you go. Yeah. So
Well,
I'm thinking, like, I could only imagine. Yeah, exactly. You'll take like 2 sips and then it's done. So don't know if you'll use it. Probably never, but yeah, I tried. And so I just think of like it is so just that one little, I think it was like a 2 hour class. It was hard, but it was challenging in such a great way. Whereas like, oh my gosh, but I still made something. It definitely didn't turn out how I thought it would, but I still made it. And there's some like I'm thinking even of this little boy where there's a sense of accomplishment and
yeah,
this like a growth and competence. Like
yeah,
I can learn a new skill and it really in turn grows his confidence,
yeah.
So yeah, that
That's
is
true. Um, when you have an outcome, you have that sense of
mhm,
accomplishment. I actually created something, and
yeah.
so yeah, I encourage you to keep going at it, and because it
Yeah.
is very therapeutic, especially when you bring
Yeah.
in the God aspect and how He calls us clay, how He wants us to be
Mm,
vessels of honor, how He wants us to reflect Him. Um, and so when you bring in that aspect, you bring in the whole firing process. Not to mention they have to be fired twice, um,
oh
sometimes
wow.
3 times even. So yeah,
Oh, I did not
and
realize that.
you have just these beautiful bowls and vases and mugs that my coffee mugs. My go-to coffee mugs are the ones I made. Something to sit there
Mm.
and drink my
Oh
coffee.
wow.
My hand on something that my hands made. Um, and
Mm.
it brings satisfaction.
It does. And the word that keeps coming up is agency
Mm,
and being able to it and kind of having that balance. I feel like of learning through this healthier agency where
yeah,
we realize there's things we can do, but we can't always control the outcome. And so like it feeds that it's like, hey, I can choose to create and it may not turn out the way I want, but
right.
I still did this, you know?
That's good because it's
Um,
a transformation. God's
yeah.
transforming us as I'm transforming, and it's about our heart too, right? So He's transforming
Yeah.
us. Um, and so yeah, and pottery is a lot about transformation.
Yeah. So with this, okay, so with transformation that happens, and just thinking of how we get to do this, it's like a communing with God if we choose to. Was there ever a moment when you were working with clay that you unexpectedly encountered God while you were doing that?
Um, Not in like a big aha moment. Um,
Hmm.
when I'm here in my garage, I have worship music playing, um, and so I could be listening to worship music, creating. The worship song could be like the other day, Kim Walker Smith was on about, and it was that protector song. And I'm like, yeah, you're our protector, and I could just be having conversations with him as I'm creating. And so I feel like it creates this atmosphere of him being, you know, in the room, which he is, but in a more inviting way. And
Yeah.
like I said, not every time, most of the time, I invite him in. I'm like, all right, Lord, we're going to help me center this clay. All right, Lord, you know,
Mhm.
let's get this clay to
Yeah.
you. Um, so yeah, I feel like I invite him into the process. a lot.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that would be very powerful. I think it'd just be helpful in cultivating our relationship with him of
Yeah.
just this like in something as creating, not just if we have our morning time with him or when we're just praying, like, sitting to pray, but getting to include him in these things. That's really neat. And I feel like that's also practical too, as far as ways that we can do that, just talking to him and putting worship music on and whatever it is that we're doing, to get our minds like fixed on and remembering he's with us.
Yeah.
So I know you've talked about the creative process, especially with pottery, like, and you're saying how it's a long process. So I'm curious and wondering, where do you see God at work in the creative process?
In the entire process, I see him
Mm.
with how you think about clay, how it's dirt, right? And
Mm.
it, you buy it at a pottery store, 25-pound bags, but it's earth. It's part of the earth. They take it and they add stuff to it to make it into clay that we can actually use. But so the process, we are dust of the earth. So we are clay vessels, really. And, the other day I was reading how Jesus took clay and he healed the blind man. And I wrote in my Bible, it's like he took clay, he spit on it, and he put it on the blind man's eyes, and then the blind man could see, right? And in my Bible, I went, because you're the potter. You created new objects, So I just think about the whole process from the very beginning, how it's earth. And he takes earth, they take earth and they make it into clay. And then we take the clay, we have to yield it or wedge it so it yields. So we're wedging the clay to make it more pliable, right?
Yeah.
And then we have to center it. There's a lot of water. And a lot of the ladies know that I'm a believer, and but it'd be nice if everybody knew that all these scriptures, how God's the potter, we're the clay, how there's just this whole process, how we as individuals, believers and unbelievers, how God takes us through the fire. And so we become more purified, and those vessels are not fit for use until they go through the fire twice. How then we glaze them and we get to pick all these different colors, and how they become this beautiful vessel that the potter is proud of. And I think about how God, as he takes us through our process, and how, the design is for us to look like him, but he loves us, and he takes us through the process so that there's this beautiful outcome on the other side.
Yeah.
And I mean, even when we're in the process, it's still beautiful. The whole journey is beautiful if we embrace it and really look to him. Thank you, Lord, that you're here with me. This is hard, but I know that something good is coming out of this. And
I could see how, again, I just keep coming back to the something tangible that we get to see. Like you're talking about this long creative process. And I'm so glad that you were able to share how that really mirrors how God works in our life. Because I would think that if I can see in these tangible ways the process of like here's how it starts, it's a lump, like I can't even see the shape and the form that it's going to take. It's going to take work and effort, and then it's also going to have to get burned, but somehow like it's not going to crumble in there, and what it will produce is something beautiful. So then I think of how getting to have that as something tangible that you see and you see God in it, then when you go through something in your own life, it's almost like marking, okay, where am I? Even just considering the creative process. Am I being shaped and formed like this lump of clay right now? Did I get off center? Am I, in the fire right now? Am I getting like the impurities removed?
Yeah.
Because I feel like if we can like see that or be reminded of there is a process to it, it's not random, like there's a purpose at the end, then it can help us endure and
Right.
keep going and
Yes.
trust and remember, like we might not be able to see the beauty and what this will look like, but it will be something beautiful and
Amen.
great in the end.
So
You know,
good. Yeah.
what are some everyday ways that people are creative, but they just don't even realize it?
Oh my gosh, I love that question. Um, Creative when we get up and like, what am I gonna, have for breakfast? And cooking is a way to be creative.
Mm.
Gardening is another way of being creative. Journaling, um,
Mm.
sitting down and reading your Bible and allowing the Lord to speak to you and just writing stuff out. You are being creative that way. Um, and then there's a lot of creative outlets like, you know, knitting and crafts and painting. Um, Creative in, I watch my husband. He's so handy. Like
Mm.
he's such a handyman, and he built this gate on the side of the house. It's like, I want to put a gate here. And, he just goes to Home Depot, he buys the wood, he cuts it, and
My gosh.
he creates a gate. And then he went and bought, because he knows I like grapes and grape leaves. Um,
Mm.
and so he found this metal that looks like, grapes. It's black metal. And
Mm.
he put it on the gate, like, and he's like, "Oh, look what I
Wow.
bought. I know you like grapes." And I know. And so now on the side of the house, there's a gate. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, he's
Wow.
working on the fence. But so there's a lot of
Mm.
ways, especially with when you're working with your hands. There's a lot of different ways to be creative. People do get fruit and they make jam, and
Mm.
it's another way of being
Yeah.
creative. Trying new recipes. Yeah,
Yeah.
being creative with your kids or your grandkids, and even fashion. People who have a really good eye with fashion, and they always have
Mm,
like the
that's a good point.
outfits put together. Um, that's another way
Yeah.
of being creative.
Yeah, that is, oh my gosh, I'm so glad. That's a good list of examples. And what's coming to mind is I feel like so often we don't realize it because it's natural for us. And
Yeah,
then so often we'll say, "Oh, I'm not creative," but every single day, I bet there's something in your day, for most people there's something that they're actually creating, but it's just natural for them and they're very good at it. But we don't see it when if it's not like hard or a fight or something.
yeah, yeah. It's true.
So, okay, I'm thinking of busy moms and who just tend to not have a lot of time. So, how can a mom or a working woman with a little bit of time reconnect with this part of herself?
Yeah. It's so important um, to to connect with that part, because you know as working moms, as moms, wives, um, employees, because you're working, you spend all day just giving of yourself, pouring yourself out. And it's good. We want to do those things, right? And, we love our
Yeah.
families, and it's part of just the roles that we have. Um, I think of it in two ways. if everything we do from a place of being a child of God,
Mm.
then there'll be that grace that we need for it. But it's really important for moms, working moms, people in general, to have an outlet so that they can get poured back into, whether it be creativity, but also community, church, just alone time with God. But creativity is very important, I believe, for everyone. In fact, I did this back in October. We had a pastors conference, and I went to one of the breakout sessions, and it was on healthy leadership. And the man that spoke said healthy leaders should have a hobby and an outlet.
Wow.
And as a parent,
That
you're a
is
leader,
crazy.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Parents, as a parent,
Yes.
you're a leader. You're leading your tribe. And so I talked to him afterwards, and he's asking me, what was my hobby, and I told him pottery. But I think it's just making the time, carving out the time to go and find a creative outlet. Look
Yes.
what your city offers. I know for me, for where I live, the city of Tracy offers all kinds of, through the rec department, all kinds of creative outlets. And even if it's not, something very creative, maybe it's, a dance is creative, but a dance class or a swimming class or something where you just get to go and be by yourself without your family for a couple hours, a couple times a week, so that you're getting filled up. And so
Yes.
we can't give what we don't have. And so if our tanks are empty, then it's going to show in the way we respond to our family.
Yes, that is very true. It is so true. And oh my gosh, it's very relatable. It's like I think of several examples in my own life and also other friends of mine.
Yeah.
And I feel like what combats us as women, as moms, carving out the time is this feeling of guilt. And really it's so much shame, but we think it's guilt. Like we feel guilty for taking time to ourselves to do something that will replenish us. But then to your point, if we don't, the frustration, the anger, all the stuff, like it will come out on our kids or our spouse or these other areas. Yeah. So what would you say to someone who says, I feel guilty for doing something for me?
Well, I would ask why. Why do you feel guilty? Number one. And deal with why the person feels guilty, and not shaming them and saying, oh, you shouldn't feel guilty, But let's find out why. Because if you want to love your family and give your family 100%, you got to have that time to yourself so that you can be filled, and to look at it as by me doing this, I'm a better version of myself for my family. And and then, spend time with the Lord and find out what is making you feel guilty. It could just be some lie that you're hearing, and allow the Lord to speak his truth to you. You think about the story with Martha and Mary, and how Martha was mad at her sister for sitting at Jesus's feet. Well, she chose the better by being in his presence, right? And Jesus kind of spending time with Martha and explaining that she chose the better. So you can go and be creative and invite God in, and not worry about the feelings of guilt. And And I often say
Yeah.
this too, our feelings are great indicators, but they don't always tell us the truth.
Oh gosh, yes. That is so true. And
Yeah.
you've told me that
Yeah.
many times
Yeah.
of like, we don't need to like discount them, but we also have to test them.
Yeah.
And you've helped me tremendously in being able to sift through our feelings and also our thoughts and beliefs to see, okay, what are the lies here? And then what is actually true? Because in doing that process, it's how we will be courageous and actually make the time
Yeah.
to invest in these things that matter.
Right. Well, that's what's so good about your podcast is you're really encouraging women to take time for themselves and allow what you're saying to them, but to to allow themselves to become whole, to become what God wants them
Yeah.
to be, and that means sometimes just carving out that time to do something that brings you joy. Other
Yeah,
than your family,
exactly.
our families bring us joy, but
Yeah, the replenishment, like what I hear you saying, is just doing these things to replenish ourselves so we can fill up to then keep pouring back out
yeah,
because otherwise there's nothing to keep doing that.
right,
Yeah. Yeah, and really it's just like I don't know. I'm so glad that you're able to speak to this because creativity is so important and essential to us thriving and flourishing and experiencing wholeness, like who God intended us to be. And it takes us taking these actions and
yeah,
these steps and
yeah,
cultivating. Creativity is a really important area of our lives to cultivate.
right.
So as we are about to wrap up, I just have a couple more questions for you. These are the last ones. So, if you could hand every woman a lump of clay and whisper one truth while she formed it, what would you say?
You can do it. You
Hmm,
can do it. Stay
that's
in there.
good.
Stay in there.
Hmm, gosh.
You know, yeah. To I would encourage women to when we have a vision, when we have vision, right? It's like God
Hmm.
told Habakkuk, write the vision and make it plain so you can run with it. So if I
Hmm.
handed a woman a lump of clay and they sat down on the wheel, it's like, what do you want to make? It's like, oh, I want to make a bowl. I want to make a vase. Okay, you can do it. Just believe in yourself. Believe in yourself, and you can do it. And allow another person to help you get there.
Wow. Yeah. Like, yeah, that is so good. That's so good. Because, yeah, we can't do this on our own.
Yeah,
And um, sometimes we think we ought to or should, but I really love that because I just think of like, I don't know, my thing is like just stay in the game, stay in the game. So I'm thinking of like stay with this example, like keep it, like just stay on the wheel. It doesn't like if it gets wonky and crazy, like just stay. You can do it. So I really love that.
and keep going back.
Yeah.
Keep going. Keep going.
Mm,
I started pottery in 2019, and I kid you not, I probably got centering down last year
mm.
because
Wow. Yeah.
and I know some people like, oh, hang in there. It'll take you about 6 months to a year. No, man, it took me, it took me years, but,
Yeah.
I hung in there and I
Mm,
kept go. I teach it, but I kept going and getting lessons. I can't center.
yeah.
I finally found a gal that taught me how to center. Because there's all kinds of different ways. And I found a gal that taught me how to center the way she does, and that's what works for me. So I would
Mm,
just encourage people to hang in there. It's so rewarding.
yeah. It is. It is. And oh, that's so good. Thank you. Wow, Maria, seriously, thank you so, so much just for getting to share your heart, your experiences, and your wisdom. I'm really grateful. Again, I know I've personally been able to connect even more dots just from what you're sharing and how important creativity is.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's not just creativity, but it's also you've really shed light on how God meets us in the creative process. And that is such a reflection to life, real
Yeah.
life, going
Yes.
through that, which is hard. And I'm really grateful for that. So
Yeah.
before we wrap up, can you just let us know where we can find you or even get our hands on one of your beautiful pieces of
Oh,
pottery?
you're so sweet. I wanted to say one last thing, and then I'll share that
Oh,
because
yeah, please do.
this came to me. You know, he invites us into the stillness, and I feel like pottery is a way of being still with him, although the wheel is
Mm,
moving. And
yeah.
and like I said, hang in there and allow yourself to be vulnerable and allow yourself to go through the process of sucking for a little while before you get to
Mm,
before you
yeah.
where you feel good. Um, I
So good.
I'll share my email. My email at the Rock is Maria C at therockca.com. And then my Instagram account is Maria Art and Clay. And people can message me. I don't have a website and any of that or Etsy. I just word of mouth if people like my stuff. I sell
Yeah.
it that way, or I like to gift people that too. Just gift stuff as it piles up in
Oh.
my spare bedroom.
Oh my gosh, yeah. One of the pieces you shared with me recently that I absolutely love, it's the um it's a big bowl with grape leaves on it.
Oh, okay.
That was one you shared with me recently. I was like, oh my gosh. And it blows me after my experience of having it shrink so much. I was like, how did you get your bowl to stay that big? I have no idea. So it's beautiful. I love what you make.
Thank you,
So
Jenna.
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
Well, if
you.
this conversation, yeah, thank you. If this conversation stirred something in you or reminded you that you are not alone, I would love for you to pass it on to a friend who might need that same encouragement. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded that she was made to create too. Thank you again for Maria, and to everybody else listening, I will see you next time. Thanks for listening to Let's Get Real. If something from today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a conversation. Until next time, remember that in order to heal, we have to get real. Talk to you soon, friend.